Wuthering Waves is entering the 2.0 era very soon, and with the 1.0 era we have seen plenty of characters come and go into the meta. But do you want a quick scoop of the current 1.4 meta? Then you're at the correct place. This is the current 1.4 Wuthering Waves tier list. First, some ground rules, and by that I want to start with defining the tiers. SS, the best of the best. The entire meta revolves around their existence. S, incredibly good characters who have no problems with the hardest content. A, good characters who may struggle more than the ones above them, but they still get the job done. B, characters with good uses, but are hardly the optimal choice. C, if you like them you can use them, but I'm strongly against it. And then D, should almost never be used. Using them for the hardest content requires an insane amount of effort. I'll be judging 5-star characters at S0 and 4-star characters at S6, all using their best weapons. However, an over-reliance on that signature weapon to do your job will be punished. The Rover in Wuthering Waves is honestly pretty good, just not this one. While Spectro Rover does offer solid nuke damage and can freeze the enemy for a couple of seconds, it's honestly nothing. No buffs means no teams. Actually, that's only partially true. Her S6 can be used for S6 Jinhsi speedruns, but that's such a niche use case that I haven't even found success with. Gonna be a D tier from me. You see, now this is what I'm talking about. Havoc Rover takes the qualities from Spectro Rover and bumps them up, while also having their own extras to the table. The nuke damage remains, offering one of the largest single hits in the game, as well as an excellent AoE tool in the form of a buffed up Dreamless. Their faster rotation also makes them a solid character for some lower investment dual carry teams such as with Changli. A good A tier. Chixia is a character that I make a lot of fun in my free time, and it's for good reason. She is a fusion DPS with literally zero AoE who also cannot parry. Chixia is lacking so many things in the quality of life department, which is a shame because her damage isn't actually half bad if you get past all the issues. But even then, it's not worth compared to some real top-notch DPS characters. Sorry, C tier. Yangyang's kit offers little substance for a vast majority of Wuthering Waves' characters. Both her skill and ultimate allow her to group enemies into a tight clutter, but the range on these abilities is incredibly mediocre, and auto-targeting makes it harder to place her ultimate in the exact middle of an enemy pile. While her outro skill energy is nice, not a single DPS thinks it's actually worth using over just building more energy regen. C tier. Due to the healer drought that this game has, Baizhi's role as a healer is one that is incredibly valued, but her issue comes with the competition currently in the game. Verina and Shorekeeper are both vastly better characters, and while this does not diminish Baizhi's prowess, it does limit her use cases, especially with floors 1 to 3 of the left and right tower being so easy. A third healer is not super useful. She's worth building if you have only one healer, but if you have both Verina and Shorekeeper, Baizhi will enter the bench. While you do technically need 3 teams, not using a healer on the earlier chambers is faster because the enemies have such little HP. B tier. Wow, Sanhua is a gem. She is an incredible character who gets overlooked constantly for no good reason. Sanhua has an incredibly short field time, one of the shortest in the game, in fact. She also has solid damage that she pops out in a very short amount of time. All of this is topped off by the fact that she is an excellent holder for Moonlit Clouds, and her S6 buffing even more attack. She is the best basic attack buffer in the game, giving her great synergy with 2 incredible DPS characters, being Camellya and Encore. If you have a DPS and healer, but don't know who to use as a sub-DPS, chances are Sanhua is your best bet. S tier. On launch, Yuanwu was one of the more disappointing characters, but this was before the rise of coordinated attacks. Yuanwu's kit was incredibly mediocre, offering very little substance, and paradoxically, that made him an excellent character with Jinhsi. Jinxi's dominance cannot be understated, so being a great low investment support for her gave Yuanwu some value. Because his kit was so mediocre, all he needed to use was his skill, do a basic attack for the healing set with Originite, and then use his Echo. Bam, done. But sadly, a low investment option is all he will ever be. B tier. Taoqi is seen by some as the game's absolute worst character, and while I disagree, I see why. Her attacks are incredibly slow and painful to use. Her only use case is to use her Ultra skill to buff Jinxi's nuke, but at S0, this is not even a good idea. Her field time, clunk, and lack of teams make her a sad sight. To the D tier. And now on the other side of the spectrum, a character I see as overrated. Danjin quickly gained fame in the community for being cute, I think. But I don't see it. But people were quick to point out her damage output and ability to work well with the Havoc Rover. While this is a solid team even now, it was especially so back when Dreamless's high damage multipliers were not matched by her low talent levels yet. But as time went on, Double Havoc gradually faded from the public eye, only being played by those who like Danjin. B tier. Aalto, my main man. God, I love this guy. Unfortunately, I cannot defend him here. If you don't like Aalto, you probably see him as an arrow buffer with very little substance. But the true enjoyers would know he would make for an incredibly fun main DPS. But even then, he has 0 AoE and can be easily disabled by a mobile enemy. I can only justify a D tier for this guy. Burn! Yet another 4-star I like, and this time I don't have to tell you about how garbage they are. Mortefi is the heavy attack guy, and ironically most of his damage is liberation and skill. Funny. Anyway, there is no doubt about what Mortefi does. Being the best in slot support for Jiyan is something I value a lot, because Jiyan is in my opinion a true top tier carry. Something less people talk about is Mortefi with Jinhsi. He does do coordinated attacks, can buff with S6, Moonland, Static Mist, and his rotation is also faster than Yinlin or Zhezhi's. But unfortunately, if you're looking at a 4-star support for Jinhsi, you'd look at Yuanwu, so I can't use this to glaze the annoyance man. Even then, he's still A tier. Encore may be one of the most underrated carries in Wuthering Waves, which is really funny since a majority of the big meta people like Meiji and Pridwin acknowledge how good she is. She is an excellent hyper carry with Sanhua, able to get boss clears on a very high level. While she does have some problems, mainly her complete lack of AoE, her great boss killer performance makes up for that. Also, a small nitpick, I can never tell when I'm supposed to dash cancel her basic 4. Her animations are so hard to decipher. S tier. Do I need to say anything? Best character at launch in 1.0 and is still a big contender. What is there to say about Verina that hasn't been said a million times? Incredibly solid buffs in the form of 20% attack, 15% damage amp, not even taking her echo reset into account. And all that put into a package that doesn't even use her intro skill and has an insanely low field time. This may be one of the easiest rankings I've ever given. S tier. Wow, the dropping quality is insane here. Going from a contender for best character in the game to this guy. As one of the very few people who actually built Lingyang, let me educate you. He sucks. He's not a good character. An AoE performance that Yoimiya herself has graced upon him, a movement system that leads to you missing like a third of your basic attacks, and a damage output that is comparable to 4-stars that don't have usability issues. They hate this guy. C tier. Speaking of usability issues, Calcharo was my first main and someone who I wished was good. But I don't get nice things. Calcharo is plagued with flaws that are a death sentence in a game that encourages dodging. You can't just sit there and attack. And sadly enough, for Calcharo, that is exactly what he wants to do. There have been combos discovered to get his death messengers faster, even leading to a 4DM rotation. But in reality, it's far too hard to expect 4DM every time. You'll be lucky to get it even once. The amount of effort required for Calcharo to perform outweighs the damage he deals. And don't get me wrong, dude can damage when you play perfectly. But that's the issue. No one plays perfectly. B tier. Jianxin versus Yangyang is such a unique debate because what Jianxin does right is where Yangyang fails and the opposite is also true. But the one thing neither of them figured out is that grouping in wuwa needs to last an entire rotation if you want it to be good. Enemies in wuwa really like being inconvenient, so it doesn't matter if you group them, because they will literally ungroup themselves the second Jianxin's vacuum is gone. Jianxin also decided, hey, what if my rotation lasted 6 years? C tier. Our beloved General Jiyan was the first limited 5-star character, and in many gachas this would mean that he is now mid, or at least not worth pulling for. Jiyan flips this idea on its head by still being one of the top tier damage options. His trademark AoE and suction are still a quality unique to him that have not been replicated, making Jiyan uniquely powerful. Giving each DPS their own specialities was a great way to prevent power creep, and it worked damn well. S tier. I'm gonna make a lot of people mad with this one. I just know it. Yinlin! People love this character, but what many people don't realize is just how little she actually does. Think about it. What is Yinlin used for? Well, her outro skill is the best source of resonance liberation buffing, and she has good AoE damage, at least with her signature. The truth is that without String Master, Yinlin has no purpose. Even a Xiangli Yao, a character who in theory has perfect synergy with Yinlin, would rather run a dual carry team with Changli or Calcharo. To be fair to Yinlin, if she has her signature, she does very large amount of damage, which single-handedly keeps her in the A tier. Jinhsi, oh boy! My main and my favorite character, and god damn am I glad my favorite character is one that Kuro also loves. The uncontested best DPS in all of Wuthering Waves on her release, and holding on to that title past every banner that we got. A combination of incredible movement, a large area coverage on most of her important hits, and oh man does she have damage. There is a very good reason that Jinhsi dominated the use rate on nearly every boss stage and tower, because if you need to get something done, Jinhsi is the one to call. Easy double S. Now for Changli. While she definitely doesn't have the same accomplishments as her disciple, she is still a force to be reckoned with, boasting some of the most exploitable attacks in the entire game. Changli is the poster child for dual carry teams, thanks to just how many things in her kit you should be swap canceling. This has, unfortunately, also resulted in her teams being harder to execute on average than a complete brain damage known as the JJ Dragon Duo. But even despite that, she still has some kick behind her. A tier. Now it's time for Changli's partner in crime, Xiangli Yao. While most people prefer playing Xiangli Yao in a hypercarry team featuring Yinlin, on the high end of play, people have figured out his potential with dual carry setups, meaning he's one of the very few characters that has a low skill floor but a high skill ceiling. This combination leads to me seeing him much more favorable than his Fire Phoenix other half. S tier. Zhezhi has an incredibly unique identity as a character. She on paper doesn't serve much of a purpose. A sub DPS with a lower damage profile than Yinlin, and her buffs are not perfectly suited to any one DPS yet. This sounds like a formula for an unneeded character, right? Well, that would be the case if it weren't for just how good Jinhsi is. While Zhezhi's performance and synergy with Perfect is not a perfect one thanks to her Glacio damage buffing, that is more to the fact that Jinhsi is incredible at a baseline already. Making a 38% skill damage would have just been way too strong. Zhezhi remains as Jinhsi's best teammate to this day, but that's about the only good character you want to play her with, so I can't put her any higher than the lower end of S. An interesting release, I have to say. Youhu decided to be a 4-star healer right after the release of Shorekeeper, which automatically set her up for failure. She has the unique gimmick of buffing coordinate attacks, which would be good if it weren't for the fact that coordinate attackers are almost always sub-DPS characters. I don't fully understand the gimmick here, but she does her job. B tier. Shorekeeper is the best character in the game, and I think we can all agree on that. Despite fierce competition from Verina and Jinhsi, I have to say that Shorekeeper really does take the cake. What's not to love? An excellent holder of Rejuvenating Glow in the Fallacy of No Return, and once your ultimate is up, oh boy, she can buff crit. Yep, our first crit buffer! This character is honestly just kind of absurd. Nothing else to say other than she is literal peak. Double S tier. Now we are diving into unreleased territory, but I am more than confident in the information we currently have. Camellya is looking to be one of the strongest DPS characters that we have gotten in Wuthering Waves, having a massive DPS ceiling that can rival Jinhsi herself, and we all know how highly I value Jinhsi. Camellya also has the range to back it up. It's not an Encore situation where you have a lot of damage but only on one target. Camellya's damage does, however, come at a massive price, being her inability to move. This can be an insane turnoff for a lot of people, and I can't blame them, but I have to stress just how much damage Camellya does. I'm going to be putting her into the S tier for now, but I will not be surprised if she proves herself to have double S tier performance. And that was my complete Wuthering Waves 1.4 tier list. Did you agree with what I said, or not? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. And while you're there, might as well leave a like and subscribe to my channel. If you want to get into a discussion with me, the best place to reach me would be my Discord or my Twitter, which are both linked in the description. But that'll be all from me. Peace.